Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
7 people gather at the Idaho Falls Activity Center near the Idaho Falls Regional Airport.
Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah.
It's 1 p.m. on a Friday.
La ilaha illallah.
Those in attendance are men, mostly middle-aged, dressed in casual attire. 2 of the men are younger, one in his mid to late 30s, the other in his 20s.
Hayya al-salah.
The one leading the group is dressed in a white robe and a takia, a short, brimless, rounded cap.
Hayya al-falah.
The men are there for one purpose: to worship God through words and music, in their own way and on their own terms.
It's a religion of peace. It always has been.
Welcome to Finding Faith, a podcast exploring the history, culture, and beliefs of different denominations in eastern Idaho.
But this is home. This is our sanctuary. We're happy and privileged to be American, and we're very happy to express that.
I'm Rhett Nelson, and today, members of the Muslim faith tell us what they believe and what it's like to be a Muslim in eastern Idaho. When I first started thinking about this podcast, the first religion I wanted to explore was Islam. The reason for that is because I knew, right off the bat, there was a lot of misinformation floating around. My introduction to Islam occurred when I was 15 years old. On September 11th, 2001, I walked into my first period world geography class at Rigby High School. The TV was on. I can remember the live footage on Good Morning America of the second plane hitting the World Trade Center in New York City.
Not appear that there's any kind of an effort up there yet. Now remember, oh my God.
Oh my God.
That looks like a second plane.
Dear
Has
Lord.
I did not see a plane go in. That just exploded.
We just saw another plane coming in from the side.
Just as clear in my mind is the plume of smoke coming from the lower tower and people scrambling in fear. I also remember seeing President George W. Bush on TV several days later, addressing the first responders near the rubble at Ground Zero.
I can hear you, the rest of the world hears you, and the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
The war on terror had officially begun, and so had the national conversation about Islam.
When 9/11 happened, I'm going to tell you right now, it hurt. I mean, it hurt our hearts more than anybody.
That's Mohanad Elabed, a practicing Muslim in Idaho Falls.
As a Muslim, I sit there and I'm watching, I'm glued to the TV, and I'm saying, please, God, don't let this guy try to claim he's Muslim.
In the years since 9/11, words like Islamic terrorism or Islamic terrorist group have often been used by the mainstream media when referring to Al-Qaeda, ISIS, or other groups committing acts of violence who claim to belong to the Islamic religion. A recent article from the New York Times indicates Allahu Akbar, a phrase used by radical jihadists that means God is the greatest, claims that Islam justifies their attacks on innocent civilians in the name of God.
It's a relief when I find out they're not Muslim, because I'm like, okay, great, another day without ridicule.
Elabed says terrorism is guerrilla warfare that is politically driven and has nothing to do with Islam.
If you kill one man, it says in the Quran, it's as though you have killed all of humanity. That's how you'll be judged. Wow. That is it's an unforgivable sin. In Islam is murder.
The Quran, of course, is their book of scripture. Elabed says anything that harms you or someone else is forbidden under Islamic law. We'll talk more about what Muslims believe later on in the podcast. But when trying to understand who Muslims are, one need look no further than the name of the religion itself. Elabed explained to me the word Islam literally means peace.
A lot of people haven't been able to sit down with Muslims and actually educate themselves and understand the culture, the cultural background behind it, the religious background behind it. You know, it's a religion of peace. It always has been.
Islam first came to eastern Idaho about 35 years ago. It began as a student organization at Idaho State University. A small congregation was later established in Pocatello around 1985 before a 2,400 square foot mosque was completed in September 2014. A small group of Muslims began worshiping together in Idaho Falls around 2008. They currently meet in the Idaho Falls Activity Center near the Idaho Falls Regional Airport Fridays at 1 p.m.
Every Friday it was being instructed every Muslims to gather all together and perform their prayer.
That's Enamal Khan, another practicing Muslim in Idaho Falls. Khan says Muslims hold their prayer service on Fridays because that is the day the words of the Quran were revealed anciently to the Prophet Muhammad. More about that in a minute. But speaking of prophets, most religions have a worldwide leader, like a prophet, to clarify doctrine and unify the faith. Muslims do not. You see, Islam is an unorganized religion worldwide. The Islamic Society of North America has a board of directors whose mission is to foster unity and development of the Muslim community on this continent. The Idaho Falls congregation is part of that society. Prominent scholars of Islam around the world also help provide instruction and training to Muslims. Individual Muslim congregations, however, do have a leader. The leader of a Muslim congregation is called an imam. Khan says it requires up to 25 years of academic training to become an imam. A trained imam is not available to every congregation, but having someone to permanently fill this role is not essential for holding weekly prayer service. The reason for this, according to Elabed, is because Islam emphasizes equality among its people. Many congregations, including the one in Idaho Falls, rotate leadership from week to week among their male members.
In Idaho Falls, we do not have an imam, means leader, who has a wisdom and knowledge to give the speech about Quran and Hadith. We are just a simple people who just know how to perform the salah.
Salah is their word for prayer, by the way. Khan was the acting imam during the service I attended.
Today's Friday's khutbah, the Friday sermon, is about the well-being of the community. Drug abuse is haram, is forbidden. This is the topics today we are going to discuss.
There's a lot of symbolism in your prayer service. You guys bow on the floor. You put your head. You make contact with the floor, and you get up and down. What's the symbolism there of those things?
I think Brother Nassim, he explained it very well.
That's Amin Al-Mahi, another member of the Muslim congregation.
It is submission to God. So, to submit to God, that you have to show your weakness and your respect.
Now, prior to participating in the prayer service, each person washes his face, head, neck, arms, and feet 3 times and removes his shoes. Elabed says cleansing yourself before submission to God in prayer is a sign of respect. But outside of prayer service, what do Muslims actually believe? Well, Amin Al-Mahi explained Islam is built on 5 pillars. Pillar number 1 is about sincerely reciting the Muslim profession of faith. It includes witnessing that there is no God but God, which is Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet. Here's Al-Mahi to explain.
Muslims believe Islam is the only religion that Prophet Muhammad sent to all mankind.
But Muhammad is not the only prophet Muslims follow.
Muslims, they are believe in all prophets that by order.
And you have to believe in Prophet Jesus. Jesus special.
All religions.
Because he's one of the 4 powerful prophets that was sent to the world to preach people. And if you deny that you don't believe Jesus, you are not a Muslim anymore.
Now, Khan went on to explain the Quran not only includes the teachings of Muhammad, but also the teachings of biblical prophets like Abraham, Moses, even Jesus.
So you do follow the Bible?
We do follow the Bibles, but the thing is, because the Bible was being changed over the time, so there is no authenticated Bibles that actually give us the right directions, and that's why Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam came with the Quran. That in the Quran you could find all the information about the Bibles, you could find all the information about Christianity, you could find all the information about the Jewish.
In the Holy Quran, that Jesus mentioned 25 times Prophet Muhammad Only 5 times.
That's Al-Mahi again. Now, at this point in the conversation, I was a little confused. I wanted to know how the Muslim belief of Jesus differs from the Christian belief of Jesus. Khan responded.
Some religious perspective or some other religions, they think that Jesus is the God or a son of a God. But we don't believe that, because we believe that Jesus is one of the prophet who was given that extraordinary power to divert people from doing the wrong things to the right things.
There is only one God, Khan says, and that's the first pillar of Islam. The second pillar of Islam is about prayer. There are 5 ritual prayers every Muslim must recite daily. Elabed explains.
Before the sun comes up, it's called Fajr, which is before the sunrise. You wake up and pray. Then we have the Dhuhr. We have the middle of the afternoon. Then we have the evening prayer. And then we have the prayer that is the night prayer. But when the sun goes down prayer, it's called Maghrib. And then we have the Isha, which is the last prayer of the day.
So that way you be, remembering God every time, It is not just one day a week that you go and, to remember God. So that will keep you, remembering God every time.
Pillar number 3 is about paying an alms or tithing to the poor or someone in need. Here once again is Enamel Khan.
When you're giving away this kind of charity, like 2.5% tithings, you are not allowed to give that to the mosque.
Correct.
Because you have to give to the individual person. People are suffering, so you need to make sure that those people are getting.
Pillar number 4 is about fasting during the month of Ramadan, which falls on the 9th month of the lunar calendar. For 30 days straight, Muslims who are physically able fast from dawn to sunset.
During Ramadan, we're all equal. Even regardless, aside from Ramadan, we're all equal. We have to suffer in the name of God in the sense of fasting.
You feed with somebody hungry.
We need to sympathize with the poor. We need to understand how it feels not to eat or drink.
But Ramadan is not just about fasting from food or drink. It's also about fasting from personal vices. Muslims use this time to come closer to God and increase their spirituality through more frequent prayer, study, and service to others. Al-Mahi says Ramadan is a special time of year for Muslims and is regarded as highly as Christians regard Christmas. Pillar number 5 involves a pilgrimage to Mecca. Mecca is a city in Saudi Arabia and is regarded as the holiest city in the Islamic religion because it was the birthplace of the Prophet Muhammad and the site where he received the first revelation of the Quran. According to IslamGuide.com, every Muslim who is financially and physically able is required to make a journey to Mecca at least once in their life. Now, these pillars are, of course, just the bedrock principles of Islam. This is not a comprehensive list of Islamic beliefs. Lots of others we could mention, but one overarching belief is the Muslims' focus on love and respect for all people.
They say Islam, lakum deen wa li deen, so you have your religion, I have mine.
Yes.
So we are taught to respect all other religions.
As I spoke with them, it was clear they were devoted to their religion. They love God and were warm and gracious to me. They were open to answering any question about their faith. And I think they also appreciated the opportunity to educate people about who Muslims really are. Misconceptions about Islam have caused people across the nation, including here in eastern Idaho, to fear Muslims. Efforts to build an Islamic Center mosque in Pocatello several years ago, for example, were met with backlash. At that time, the Idaho State Journal reported some were claiming the Islamic faith preached intolerance of others and promoted the killing of Christians and Jews. 2 years after the completion of the mosque, increasing numbers of Muslim students attending Idaho State University prompted some to persecute and mistreat these students. A public meeting was later held to address these concerns.
Some of the rumors or some of the political different kind of situations, Muslims doesn't want to show them that I'm a Muslim. They try to hide themselves most of the time.
Again, that's Enamel Khan.
I feel pressure sometimes if I wear this kind of attire.
He's talking about the white robe and cap he was wearing during our conversation. He had just finished leading the group for the prayer service that day.
If I go out people could see me in different way. And they will think about the same thing about like terrorism and all this stuff. They're like, this guy looks like a terrorist. Even if you're a good person, it doesn't matter.
Right.
So people try to hide themselves so that they could protect them from different kind of like bad activities or bad kind of things could be happening to them.
But international tensions about Muslims aside, El Abed says Islam is a worldwide religion that is growing in the United States. The Islamic culture originates outside the U.S., but this group of men is clear about where their loyalties lie.
There's nobody as patriotic about this country as the people that have been given opportunity like us Muslims. This is home. This is our sanctuary. We're happy and privileged to be American, and we're very happy to express that.
Whatever it requires to protect this country, Khan says the Muslims living on American soil will always be there, because that is their duty as followers of Islam and as U.S. citizens. I asked them if there were any plans to build a mosque in Idaho Falls. Khan says there is interest, but due to the small amount of Muslims currently living here, it doesn't make much economic sense to build one right now. For now, they're just grateful to the city for allowing them to worship in the space that's available, and for the way they've been treated by those not of their faith.
I don't think I've ran into any discrimination living here in Idaho Falls.
El Abed says eastern Idaho is a blessed area that provides comfort and safety to everyone, regardless of religion.
We feel very welcomed here. You know, thankfully, it's been a very good community.
For EastIdahoNews.com, I'm Rhett Nelson, and this is Finding Faith.